You know, last season's cameras may have stopped, but what about the drama? It's only getting started, baby. There are rumors that while filming sequences for the next season, Yandy Smith had a complete emotional breakdown, and yes, chill, it was all captured on video. It went far beyond tears, according to production sources. We're talking about unadulterated emotion, rising voices, and tension so intense that a knife could pierce it. However, what caused Yandy to go into a tailspin? She reportedly reached her breaking point after a violent argument with Rasheeda and none other than Jessica. And let's just say that this was a personal shade, not the superficial one we're used to. Secrets were revealed, old scars were resurrected, and what about Yandy's serene exterior, broken in public view? And the most outrageous aspect. Fans who have seen snippets of the leaked video are describing it as the most dramatic breakup in hip-hop and love history. Even the producers, according to those present, were shaken and asked, "Should we continue filming?" The type trembled. What actually transpired between these three then? And why is everyone speculating that this could permanently alter the plot of Yandy's story? It all began on a day that was supposed to be straightforward, a brief catch-up session, a few informal camera rolls, and then everyone would go home. Stay tuned because we're going to go over every messy detail. However, Yandy wrought weeks of brewing tension with her as she entered the boutique lounge, not simply a Coach bag and a brand new manicure. Her sleep had been poor. She had been listening to sidelong glances and whispers, backstage rumors that Jessica and Rasheeda are planning behind her back and analyzing every action she takes. The late-night text conversations in which she was not involved. The plots that kept her name in the news because of other people's turmoil rather than her accomplishments. She informed her assistant she would have a few minutes to herself after arriving early. She tried to calm the butterflies in her stomach by sitting on the velvet couch and taking deep breaths of air that had been chemically scented. She was reminded that she was on show by the mic pack that strained around her waist. Like flies, the crew rushed around her, checking the audio, adjusting lighting, and mounting cameras on tripods. They were unaware of the storm they had caused. Producers saw the change but hoped it would pass as they exchanged covert glances. The screenplay for today was meant to be lighthearted, with Yandy and Rasheeda discussing fashion, the cast vacation that is coming up, and other innocuous topics. The only person who didn't appear to seek conversation was Yandy. Her irritated eyes flickered as she aimlessly browsed over her phone screen. She felt someone was speaking even though all of the notifications had been muted. She sensed it, wearing a cream shirt and matching pants that contrasted with Yandy's edgy streetwear. Rasheeda's arrival was serene, almost regal. Rasheeda gave the director a hug, gave the team a kind smile, and then gave Yandy a quick nod. Cold, only recognition. "Hey," she replied quietly, her hands clasped, her voice silky. Yandy didn't answer. Rasheeda sat down, crossed her legs, and acted as though nothing was wrong. But the air was heavy. Like static electricity, the tension pricked. "Are we doing okay?" After a minute, in a tone that seemed deceptively informal, Yandy asked. Rasheeda's forehead raised. "Yes," she answered softly, "we're doing okay." However, she avoided looking into Yandy's eyes. That slight deviation, that hesitancy, Yandy leaped. "Really?" She sat up taller and spoke in a calm, low voice. "Because it seems like someone has been busy spreading rumors. Remarks regarding my commercial endeavors and my behavior when the cameras are not filming." Rasheeda's mouth tensed. "I'm not sure what you're talking about," she said. Yandy leaned in front. "Don't act foolish, and avoid acting as though you know the truth." The filmmaker indicated rolling with a hand while remaining silent. Every change in her expression was captured on camera. Jessica in at that moment, humming a song and holding a phone. With her ankle tapping, she crawled onto the couch next Rasheeda. She gave Rasheeda a sidelong glance full of malice after glancing at Yandy. "What's happening?" she asked, yet there was a challenge in her tone. Jessica's eyes were held by Yamaha. "Just what I said," she answered. "I'm curious as to why you guys find it amusing to disparage me behind my back." Jessica shrugged. "We express what we desire." "Yes." Yandy broke the serene facade of the lounge by standing and speaking in a controlled yet raised voice. "And you guys just think I won't find out? That the clips won't be heard by me?" The quotations. "The content that you all provide to bloggers?" Rasheeda shifted uneasily. "I'm not giving anyone any food." "All right," Yandy retorted. Then, as if it were amusement, "Explain why I keep hearing your names combined while discussing my private life. That I don't have to worry about my family." At last, the director said, "Let's take a quick break." But Yandy interrupted. "No pauses," she declared. "We're done with this now." The room remained silent. The cameras rolled. Gripping stopped. Assistants looked at each other anxiously. Rasheeda's rapid breathing was the sole sound. "I've been coping with enough stress off camera," said Yandy in a husky voice. "Please pardon me if I don't find that amusing. My son has been out of control at school. Demands on my time are crazy. And on top of that, I get to enjoy watching people I thought I could trust gossip about me." Jessica gave a sharp growl as she laughed. "You are the issue, Yandy. You make it about yourself all the time." "See?" Yandy pointed as he spoke. "That's precisely what it is. Because it's simple, you want to blame me for everything." She took a step forward. Nobody could determine if Rasheeda's eyes were flitting with fear or guilt. "Stop searching for villains where none exist." Rasheeda murmured in a quiet, tremulous voice. "I didn't mention you at all." "But someone did," remarked Yandy, "and I can tell it's you too without receipts." "I sense it." She then tipped her head and crossed her arms. Everyone briefly waited to see if she would cry or leave. Rather, Yandy chuckled quietly, his voice harsh and bitter. "For too long, I've been playing nice. I haven't said anything. I have acted as a mediator. But today is the last day of that." She gestured to the camera with her uplifted hand. "This is true. It's unfiltered." With her fists on her hips, she backed up slowly. Lashes quivered. The dam then burst. Her voice broke into sobs as she collapsed onto the couch. Not theatrical, but sincere. Tears streamed down her cheeks, leaving rivers of mascara. Her shoulders trembled as she hid her face in her hands. Rasheeda and Jessica froze, their expressions displaying astonishment and shame. Employees muttered, "Oh, she's crying." A member of the light crew covered her mouth. Everyone knew that a second camera had been turned on to capture the uncut moment, even when the director yelled, "Cut." Yet the video continued to play. A producer banged on the door, asking what had occurred, and a runner called out as muted noises drifted in from outside. Uneasy, Jessica stood. Rasheeda remained sat and twisted her hands. Yandy's cries inside turned into soft sniffles. She looked up, her eyes red but determined, and used the back of her palm to wipe away her tears. "I'm finished," she muttered. "I can't do this any longer." She got back up and started towards the exit, unsteady but resolute. The sound of her heels hitting the hardwood floor was audible. Rumors began to circulate behind her. "She's too sensitive." "Drama queen." "Did you witness that collapse?" Outside, she felt the cool air on her face. She closed her eyes and took a long breath. She was led to a nearby bench by a buddy who put an arm around her. She put her head in her hands and sank. The camera team did not follow. No more scripts, nothing but quiet. And that public and on-camera breakdown served as the catalyst for all rumors, changes in alliances, and responses from the actors, fans, and family. Everything changed in that instant. Nobody had any idea how profound the betrayal was or how fiercely Yandy would defend her truth up until this point. However, it was evident that this was just the start. Things went into slow motion as soon as the cameras stopped filming after Yandy's collapse rocked the production offices. Rasheeda and Jessica exchanged glances inside the lounge that conveyed a lot of emotion, including remorse, perplexity, and a deeper one: the knowledge that they might have made a mistake in their calculations. With trembling hands, Rasheeda smoothed her blouse before standing up and trying to speak, but her voice froze in her throat. Even to her own ears, Jessica's mumbled apology sounded insincere. With wide eyes, the director cleared her throat and signaled for a pause. While producers huddled in a corner, whispering anxious updates to executives. Grips rushed to reset the lights. Everyone was aware that the video would be leaked. Yandy was still shaking as she sat on a bench outside in the summer light with her arms encircling her. In hushed tones, her friend, who was sitting next to her, offered water and tissues while discussing ground rules like block your socials and don't tell anyone else on set how you feel. Although she nodded slowly, Yandy's thoughts were racing. She felt deceived, vulnerable, and somehow empowered. She understood that letting go had also been her breaking point. The world would witness both her strength and her vulnerability. In the meantime, there was a lot of awkward tension in the room. In whispers, the team discussed how difficult it was to film without cutting, how raw Yandy's tears appeared, and how even Rasheeda's poise had faltered. According to someone, the assistant producer who was listening to everything outside had a covert camera that was recording audio. All off-camera conversations were suddenly possibly captured on video. Before anyone else could watch their phone film, production helpers hid in corners and erased it. Executives and the showrunner met a few minutes later in a separate meeting room behind the scene. They discussed whether to save this breakdown for a mid-season cliffhanger or to fit it into the debut episode. While one producer claimed it was too detrimental to Yandy's reputation, another claimed it was the very unvarnished truth that drew viewers to the program. The ultimate choice: significantly modify the context but bury it in the first episode. In order to create the most tension, Yandy would first seem strong before emotional memories would interrupt. The word got out quickly that evening. Speculation erupted on social media pages associated with the performance. Screenshots of the Yandy crying moment went viral with mysterious captions that read, "Did Yandy just reveal the lies of Rasheeda and Jessica?" And listen to what they whispered. Fan forums erupted, and groups called Team Yandy, Team Rasheeda, and Team Dine were created. Even the official hashtag for the concert, #YandyBreakdown, was surpassed by trending topics the following morning. Cast members' phones were constantly pinging with notifications. Yandy gazed at her reflection in her hotel room, the smudged makeup a reminder of how real this had become. Calm yet resolute, she called her manager. She required authority. "Own my narrative," she wrote as a message to her publicist. She made the decision to create a brief video, shot on her phone, in which she spoke directly to her admirers. With her eyes sparkling, she spoke quietly, explaining that although the footage will show, the true tale was deeper. Her struggles as a wife, mother, and businesswoman behind closed doors. She asked fans to join her outside of the drama and pledged to be open and vulnerable. She shared the link with her staff and posted it privately. In the meantime, Jessica and Rasheeda met in Rasheeda's trailer. Rasheeda paced, wondering when things had gone so wrong as she mentally reenacted Yandy's charges. With her phone in hand, Jessica sunk onto the comfortable couch and browsed through the popular posts on Rasheeda's betrayal. She winced at the irate remarks that told her to own up to her mistakes and apologize. "We need a plan," Rasheeda said quietly as he paused his pacing and turned to face Jessica. Jessica rubbed her temples and nodded. "We regret how things unfolded, but we never intended to hurt Yandy," they wrote in a joint statement. "I hope that we can all grow better together." They considered posting it right away, but were concerned that it would appear overly reactionary. The show's official account released a mysterious teaser the following morning, describing raw emotions, shattered trust, and an explosive fallout. Watch to discover who emerges victorious. Although it hinted to Yandy's hardest moment, it also stated that misunderstandings will unfold. Every word was interpreted by the fans. The actors were tense. Around the same time, Yandy's video from her hotel went live on her own channels. The caption read, "For the fans who've always supported me," and it soon accumulated hundreds of thousands of views. While some hailed her courage, others referred to it as a publicity gimmick. Filming resumed on the set. With a fresh intent, Yandy walked in, his eyes steely and his forehead furrowed. She was met by clumsy smiles from Rasheeda and Jessica. Stiff embraces and halting small talk were captured on video. Producers told them to shoot a moment of reconciliation, with Jessica giving a hug and Yandy accepting flowers from Rasheeda. However, the uneasiness was evident. Forced smiles and flitting eyes were captured on video. They were mining everything for content. Wendy had a private meeting with her husband during lunch. Her voice was low as she gripped his hand. She admitted that she felt deceived and that it had been both frightening and empowering to expose her vulnerability. He pushed her not to feel bad about expressing emotion and reminded her of her strength. She nodded, her eyes welling up with tears once more, but this time they were tears of relief rather than agony. Later that afternoon, Rasheeda called Yandy and apologized using a pre-written script. With his arms folded and an unreadable expression, Yandy listened. Rasheeda discussed the value of honesty, friendship, and loyalty. With composure, Yandy replied, "I need you to show, not tell. Without action, words are nothing." Rasheeda paused and said, "I'll prove it." Then, with a trembling voice, Jessica stretched out. She acknowledged that she hadn't taken Yandy's demands into account. She attempted to portray it as tough love, but Yandy interrupted. "I'm already fighting my own battles, so I don't need tough love," she stated firmly. Neither side was entirely satisfied when the call finished. That night, Yandy wrote a heartfelt journal entry that she never meant to publish. In it, she discussed the conflict between strength and fragility, the price of celebrity and reality, and the hope that the truth might eventually mend divisions. Determined to keep her peace, she put the book down and closed it. Yandy was unaware that her diary entry had been snatched from her caravan by an invisible hand. An inquisitive and overburdened assistant believed it could be effective promotional material. After taking a picture, they transmitted it up the chain. Production was humming about Yandy's secret diary all night. Executives recognized a chance and decided to leak it selectively to create intrigue. Thus, fragments of her raw thoughts surfaced on fan pages prior to morning. Yandy's blood turned cold as she found out about the leak. With a voice that was scarcely audible above a whisper but brimming with rage, she confronted the producers on site. She remarked, "You said this was safe." This was a private matter. The showrunner stammered, but was hushed by Yandy's gaze. Nevertheless, cameras continued to roll, recording every moment. Yandy versus showrunner, betrayal, was the new drama that fans woke up to. Headlines flashed. Social media took off. The cast prepared for the aftermath while they were still working. And despite everything, Yandy remained strong, hurt, maybe, but unwavering. She had no idea where the next battle would take her, but she knew that this season would completely change who she was. There was no going back now, since the animosity between Rasheeda and Jessica had only gotten worse. That night, with a strange mixture of relief and terror, Yandy left the set. At least on the surface, the manufactured group meal had gone smoothly, but underneath the fake grins and clinking glasses, the cracks were only becoming bigger. The ensemble continued to be pulled by the invisible currents of ambition and treachery as they separated and went off to their separate trailers and lifestyles. Social media was ablaze with hypotheses by the following morning. Rasheeda's voice, crystal clear, was heard in a leaked audio clip that was taken from the assistant producer's cover recorder. It ridiculed Yandy's breakdown and asked whether it had been for real or just more drama for the show. The bit of information went viral, appearing on both secret group chats and gossip pages. Fans analyzed each tone and sneer, coming to their own conclusions. Was Rasheeda callous? Was the entire feud merely a show? Yandy's inbox blew up. There were encouraging emails from fans, anxious texts from friends, and a few nasty remarks accusing her of exaggerating to get attention. She felt her chest constrict as she scrolled over the sea of text. Her eyes began to well up again, but she pulled herself together. The joy of witnessing her crack twice was something she refused to give anyone. "I faced real pain, not staged it," she wrote in a brief tweet. "Rumors will always be overshadowed by the truth." After saying that, she put her phone away and concentrated on the shoot for the day. There was a dark vibe on set. Every sidelong glance was captured by the cameras that were placed everywhere. Rasheeda was the first to arrive, her hair pushed up tightly and her face unreadable. Without saying anything, she walked by Yandy in the corridor. Later, with red eyes from reading too many comments late at night, Jessica put on makeup. She hardly looked up when the stylist offered her coffee. Producers lingered, keen to capture the tension on camera, sowing their own seeds with queries such: "How do you feel hearing those leaks? Do you believe that this conflict is genuine?" That day's scenario with Yandy and Jessica making tie-dye t-shirts was intended to be a humorous one. Nobody failed to notice the irony. Cameras rolled when the designer beat offered vibrant dyes and blank shirts. At first, while teaching Jessica how to fold, Yandy moved with experienced ease and joked. However, Yandy froze when Jessica's fingers touched hers as she stretched over to give her a shirt. The world shrank as she raised her head and met Jessica's eyes. "Why did you do it?" With a voice lilting with sadness, Yandy asked quietly. "Why did you allow that clip to be released?" Jessica hesitated, her fingers saturated with dye, hovering over the pail. "I didn't," she said in a trembling voice. Yandy shook her head, but she said, "It wasn't me. It was leaked by someone." Her words dangled. Every heartbeat was captured by the roving cameras. Then, attracted by the abrupt tension, Rasheeda emerged in the doorway. She surveyed the scene, the assistant director frozen in mid-call, Jessica clutching a garment soaking in yellow dye, and Yandy standing immobile. Rasheeda's arms were crossed. She remarked, "Perhaps you two can figure this out off camera." But no blade could cut as sharply as her tone. Yandy confronted her. "Did you give it away?" she inquired. Rasheeda squinted her eyes. "Don't blame me for that," but Yandy persisted, "since I am aware that you had access." Jessica retreated, splattering dye on the ground as her face went white. When the crew finally blinked and someone shouted "cut," nobody got up to tidy up. They were too preoccupied to pay attention to the drama. Yandy experienced a wave of rage that she had never experienced before during that intense time. She snatched up the dye crate and threw it forward, causing the jars to fall to the floor and scatter colors on the hardwood floor. "I'm done," her voice echoed as she yelled. The ensuing hush was deafening. Rasheeda and Jessica exchanged frantic looks. Yandy disregarded the set assistant as she scuttled ahead to collect the shattered glass. She left rainbow smears in her wake as she stormed off. She eventually rushed into the corridor, her footsteps pounding as she crossed the floor. A production assistant attempted to follow, apologizing in a whisper, but Yandy walked right by. She was breathing heavily as she leaned against the wall. Her veins throbbed with adrenaline. She was lucid, lively, and unstoppable. Meanwhile, Jessica and Rasheeda hid in a supply closet inside the lounge set. Rasheeda slapped at her shoe's color splash. She growled, "We can't continue doing this. Our careers are at stake." Jessica pushed against the wall with her back. "So what should we do?" she muttered. Her eyes glinted with sheer terror. Taking her phone outside, Yandy wrote a straightforward status update. "I stand for truth, even if it costs me everything." Just that, without any emojis or hashtags. It received hundreds of likes and retweets in a matter of minutes. She observed as supporters came together, vowed allegiance, and conjectured about her true nature. The cast got back together for a confessional section later that afternoon. As each member of the ensemble was brought in, cameras focused on vacant seats. With the lights turned down, Yandy sat in the makeshift booth and said, "I'm sick of being ignored. I'm sick of acting as though nothing is wrong. I'm sick of people I trust taking pleasure in my suffering." Every emotion on her face was captured on video, unadulterated and unrefined. Then came Rasheeda's confession. She read a well-crafted speech while sitting erect and composed. "I apologize for the way my remarks were interpreted. I had no intention of hurting Yandy. I respect and admire her strength." Her voice was calm and well-practiced. It stood in stark contrast to the jagged edges of Yandy. Last was Jessica's turn. She cleared her throat, tinkled with the microphone, and then apologized hesitantly. "I am aware that I added to her suffering. I apologize, Yandy. I was blinded by ambition." Her eyes became glossy. Her vulnerability was captured on camera. but many viewers felt it was a clumsy attempt. Viewers could easily see the contrasts when the confessionals aired that week. Jessica's anxious remorse, Rasheeda's polished regret, and Yandy's unabashed sincerity. It exploded on the internet. Arguments centered on loyalty, sincerity, and the identity of the true villain. The producers congratulated themselves on capturing real emotion as they reveled in the surge in ratings. However, the gap had simply widened behind the scenes. Driven by rage and support, Yandy intensified her battle. Stung by criticism, Rasheeda drew closer to herself and began planning her next course of action. Disturbed by criticism, Jessica wondered if she would make it through this storm. The cast boarded their trailers as the sun sank over Atlanta, each bearing the burden of the day's discoveries. In addition to discoloring the floor, the spilt dye had tainted every motivation and interaction. And while some of the truth was now known, the remainder remained hidden, waiting for the ideal opportunity to come to light. Because the only thing that was consistent in their life was drama, and calm was a flimsy illusion. None of them would be ready when the next secret was revealed, since the next twist was already underway. The crew greeted her with smiles, the cameras were prepared for a relaxed sit-down, and Yandy arrived at the set with her customary grace. It was the kind of morning that should have seemed normal. However, she felt the weight of every whisper she had been avoiding as soon as she entered that brightly lit Atlanta lounge. In an attempt to regain her composure, Yandy traced the shape of her coffee cup while her helper lingered close by, silent and apprehensive. She wondered how many different versions of herself were already on social media, being analyzed by both fans and critics, as she looked at the elaborate mirror behind the camera setup and saw her reflection framed by gentle ring lights. Behind the scenes, everyone was talking about the alleged conflict between Jessica Dime, Rasheeda, and Yandy. Production helpers exchanged sly looks as they speculated about whether the topic of discussion today would be a powder keg or an olive branch. As she sat down on the velvet couch with her hands folded neatly in her lap and her knees squeezed together, her heart raced. On camera, she appeared calm, with flawless makeup and well-groomed hair, but behind it all were reminders of late-night texts she had intercepted and bits of private conversations she had overheard. Yandy's breath hitched as Rasheeda showed up wearing slim pants and a smooth white blazer that radiated calm confidence. Rasheeda gave a short nod to Yandy after tossing her hair and grinning courteously at the crew. Cold. No hello, only one eyebrow raised. Rasheeda crossed her legs gracefully and sat across from Yandy while the silence drew in between them. Producers used the terms rolling and action, in the hopes that the pre-planned inquiries about fashion partnerships would diffuse the situation. As she responded about the most recent boutique launch, cameras centered on Rasheeda's lips, but her eyes kept shifting to Yandy to gauge her reaction. Yandy took a swallow. She had practiced being unbiased when discussing the upcoming season of the show, but something inside of her suddenly exploded. Her voice was calm but had a steely edge as she leaned forward. She remarked, "I've heard a lot of talk about me." Rasheeda paused her smile. Whispers were suppressed by the crew. "What are you saying?" Rasheeda's voice was even as she answered. Yandy's eyes grew piercing. "You understand what I mean completely. The lunch you had with Jessica Dime seemed to be more about your business plans than my personal life." Time seems to slow down. Rasheeda's breathing became labored. Her gaze flitted to the cameras as she murmured, "I have no idea what you're talking about. We just talked about the boutique strategy." Yandy gave a head shake. "Cease it. You two have been conspiring by making statements and fabricating tales. Quotes are being leaked to blogs, making me appear unstable." She fought the tremble building in her throat by pressing her lips together. Unaware of the animosity that was simmering beneath the surface, Jessica Dime walked in at that precise moment, phone in hand. She greeted everyone with a cheerful hello, but she stopped when she noticed Yandy's posture. Yandy did not recoil. She looked directly into Jessica's cold, unblinking eyes. "I'm glad you could join," she muttered. Jessica's mouth twisted. "What's happening now?" she inquired in a mockingly worried tone. With a stern yet calm voice, Yandy answered, "You know exactly what's going on. I'm sick of hearing rumors that I'm too dramatic, fake it for the camera, or can't handle pressure. Did you ever consider the possibility that my tears are a result of my humanity? Her remarks fell like pebbles in a pool of quiet water. Lights swayed on cables, the crew shuffled uneasily, and a microphone snapped somewhere. Rasheeda parted her lips, then shut them again. She glanced at Jessica. "Bring me receipts if you feel that way," she urged. "Avoid approaching me with gossip." Yandy's chest constricted. She pushed her chair back and stood up gently. Her voice was tinged with anguish as she stated, "I've got more than enough. I'm done acting as though I don't know." The camera team exchanged glances at that point. They felt gold, but at what price? Before calling cut, the director paused. The lights remained on. Tears filled her eyes and her heart pounded. She felt intensely alive, raw, and vulnerable. "I've been holding it in for weeks," she said, taking a shaky breath. "I've been telling my kids that I'm okay while grinning in public. However, I feel like I'm drowning behind the scenes. I'm supporting my husband, maintaining a family, and operating a business, and all I receive in return is slander and rumors." Jessica sneered. "Perhaps you would be less of a target if you quit acting like the victim." Rasheeda's eyes wavered, but it was difficult for Yandy to determine if it was embarrassment or guilt. The strain tightened. Tears slipped out of her eyes, blurring her vision. In an attempt to stop the flow, she put her fingertips to her cheeks. "You think I'd like to have any of this captured on film? Do you believe that I take pleasure in being the one to break?" Her voice broke as she shook her head. "This is not a performance." The crew held their breath. "This is me." Yandy's shiny cheeks glinted in the sunshine. The cameras remained in place. With her shoulders bowed, Yandy sank into her chair and let out a faint sob. There was silence for a heartbeat as she put her hands over her face. Then Rasheeda got up and tentatively extended a hand to Yandy. "I apologize," she said in a barely discernible whisper. Jessica was conflicted as she took a step forward but stopped. With her eyes raw and red, Yandy lowered her hands and gazed at Rasheeda's extended arm. She hesitated, then slowly stood up, stumbling a little as though her feelings were pressing down on her. She turned and walked towards the exit without saying anything, the velvet curtain swaying behind her. With a soft voice, a production assistant hovered and said, "Yandy, you need a minute?" She didn't answer. In stark contrast to the tense mood within, sunlight flooded in from outside. Her pal was waiting with their arms out, just beyond the threshold. With tears streaming freely now, sob after sob, the kind that uproots everything inside, Yandy fell into those arms. No cameras followed. She gave up all the poise she had so long possessed and allowed herself to melt. Although the future seemed uncertain, she discovered a fiery clarity in that vulnerability. She refused to let anybody else to define her truth. Inside, Jessica and Rasheeda shared a regretful glance. They might have gone too far. Perhaps more had been caught by the cameras than they had anticipated. The moment would not stop even after the producers called cut. Not for Yandy, not for the show, and most definitely not for the spectators who would be able to witness her breaking free. This was the first act of Yandy's story, not its conclusion. You've been there to see every unfiltered moment of the escalating tension between Yandy, Rasheeda, and Jessica. Fans are surprised by Yandy's emotional collapse. The cast was split more than ever when she faced old pals in front of the cameras, and emotions ran hot. We've witnessed alliances change, trust betrayed, and years of allegiance threatened by secrets. However, this is not where the narrative ends. Will Rasheeda's apology be taken seriously, or will it fall apart again under duress? Will Jessica's ambition cause another rift in the trio's already tenuous friendship, or can she demonstrate that her regret is sincere? And will the journal entries that were released reveal further facts or engulf Yandy in even more treachery? The real drama is just getting started as the cameras stop rolling and the sun sets on Atlanta's sound stages. Viewers have been moved by Wendy's struggle for honesty, and her bravery in displaying vulnerability has turned social media into a battlefield of viewpoints. According to rumors, a new secret alliance is emerging, and someone is going to cross a line that cannot be uncrossed. Behind the scenes, the production is already arranging the next explosive twist. What do you think then? Is this breakdown the beginning of a more spectacular collapse, or will Yandy find courage in her truth and triumph? Is forgiveness impossible following such a public outburst, or can Rasheeda and Jessica make amends for the harm they have caused? Leave a comment with your opinions. It might help guide the discussion. Make sure to hit the notification bell, like this video, and subscribe for all the newest love and hip-hop updates if you've been captivated by this roller coaster of betrayal and unfiltered passion. This way you won't miss a second of the mayhem. Because drama never sleeps in this world, and you shouldn't either. Let us know which side you support and what secrets you believe will come to light next.